So today I want to talk about some lessons that I've learned from two big business failures. I've had two, and first one I lost just over $1 million, the second one I lost multi-millions. And I think the biggest takeaway that I've had from that is you can always make more money. As weird as that sounds. So the first failure I had was actually my second business. So backstory, I'm about 22 businesses in now, I think. As you can tell, I'm 44, the white beard, probably stress induced, I would say, but who knows? There's no family history of white hair, but here I am. And so my first business was a cafe restaurant. I was 30 years old, and previous to that I was working in corporate world. And corporate world, being a state manager in franchise groups, you think being a state manager or national manager, you think you're unstoppable. You think you know everything. And the thing you don't know is that the business owners that you're coaching are doing far better than you and have a lot more business experience than you. And when it comes to business, experience is everything. There's nothing you can learn in a book that can outweigh what you can actually learn in real life business. Because in real life business, things happen every single day that you are underprepared for. You have no idea these things exist until they happen. And that happened to me in business multiple times. I've had hundreds of employees. I've had situations I've never experienced before. And one of the things is you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes things happen that you don't want to happen, you don't plan to happen, but they happen because you never dealt with it before. You don't know the outcome, you just don't know. And until you have that experience and you get a bit wiser and more white hair, you learn not to do those things in the future. And my first business was a cafe restaurant. I actually did a deal because back to my corporate world, I would always see that there was business owners that were doing better than me. I'm thinking, why? I'm way smarter than these guys. I know all this information. I'm helping these guys improve their business, and I really was. I was getting very good at my craft and helping others improve their business. And by doing that, I thought, hang on a minute, why am I not just doing business myself? You fool. So about a week later than that, I quit my job, had a few conversations with people, went back to an old person I knew from a previous business relationship, because relationships are absolutely everything. You never burn a bridge because you never know what's going to happen in the future. To have a conversation with someone who may lead to something more, you just don't know. So anyway, fast forward, I'm 30 years old. I buy my first cafe restaurant with $10,000. I had no property because I'd had a nasty separation. Previously, I lost a bunch of houses and stuff leading up to that. So I had $10,000 in the bank. I had paid this guy 10 grand. He gave me an opportunity to pay the restaurant off after a 12-month period. If I liked it, he said. Go there, see what you think. If you like it, keep it. If you don't, hand it back, whatever. So I went there. The business broke even for the first few months. After a while, got some momentum and went from breaking even. I cleared about $400K my first year. Paid the $150 to the guy. He was happy because he got off his books. He made the money he wanted to make, and I was happy because I was up and away. I had more money than I'd had for a long time. I was free. I was in my business. I was working 7 days a week, yes, but that's the path that I'd chosen, and I was happy to do that because I was seeing the financial reward. Now, fast forward about 18 months, I'm going to say, another opportunity came up to own another one. Same guy, and the opportunity was in the other side of the state. So now, when you have a business and you think you have the first business and it's doing really well, you think it's doing well because it's everything that you've done. And what you think then is that you're unstoppable and whatever you touch will turn to gold. But I quickly learned that's not the case. So the second one, to fit it out, get it all set up, I think it was about 600-700 grand. I paid it all in full, I think. Yeah, I think I paid it all in full. I paid maybe 500k down because I was by myself, had no wife. I had my daughter who wasn't living with me, so my cost of living was tiny. I was staying at a mate's house in a spare bedroom, so I was just banking all the money I had. So I did no bank loan, and bought this other, well, started this other cafe hours away from where I was. So not only did I have the challenge of running it in two different locations, but it was miles away from anywhere from each other. I couldn't just jump in the car and go to the other one to help them out. I had to catch a plane and wait a whole day. So, and then I ran that for about 6 months. It failed miserably. I'd lost all my money I put into it, all my time I put into it. I ended up selling the successful one. I think I sold it for about 500k, and used that money to fund the new one, which I thought was going to do better. But long story short, that business failed. I closed the doors in just on 12 months. And in that 12 months, I lost all that money. So I think at the end of the day, I was down about 800k. Now, was it hard? Yes. Was it tough? Yes. My ego was bruised because I thought I was unstoppable. I'd had this great success, and of course I could do more. I could do 10 of these things because it's me. Of course I can do it. Look what I did in 1 year. Imagine what I could do in 5 years across multiple stores. But it wasn't the case, and it failed miserably. So I sold my first one, went to the second one, lost everything there, and I was down about 800 grand, back to square zero. I actually had about 30, 40 grand in the bank, stashed away. So I took a few months off after that because the shock of the ego bruise, losing all the money, looking back and going, I've worked 2-3 years to lose all this. The real lesson from that is you're not indestructible. Just because one thing worked in one location doesn't mean it's going to work in another. And don't get carried away and think just because your first one's successful, you're not going to be able to cut and paste that over and over. There's real work to be done. And things I did well, because I actually bought a house in that time as well. I didn't have a bank loan. I didn't lose my house. I did a bunch of things that lined up really well, and a bunch of things that didn't line up really well. So I was still financially okay in the background. I still had a house that was being rented. I was still ticking over financially, but I'd lost 800k, which is a serious amount of money. Now, in hindsight, I look back, I should have just kept the first one, invested that money, bought some more properties, some stocks, invested in the S&P 500. Would have got a much better return long term and a lot less stressful. And instead of thinking I was unstoppable and I could grow this massive empire, now whether it's a timing, a location, there's a bunch of things you could look back and dwell on, but the underlying issue was I grew too big too fast and thought I could do it all when I couldn't. And looking back, that's the big learning from that is, just patience. Take your time. There's no rush to grow and expand, and there's no rush to be at a certain spot by 30, 40, 50, 60. Who made those rules? You can be successful at 20, you can be successful at 80. Who cares? There's no right or wrong or bookwork or framework to say that you have to do it by a certain time in a certain way. You just do it as per your life. Now, fast forward from that, I went back to corporate land, did some more state manager roles, saved up some cash, got myself in a position to be able to go into another business venture with a guy I knew, and that did really, really well. And we ended up investing some cash. Again, lost a bit of cash, put some cash away. Going a bit of a ramble here, but it's a long list of other businesses, some barbershops, some other investments that did well. And I ended up going into partnership with a friend of mine who I'm still in partnership with other businesses now, so nothing about our agreement or our partnership. We ended into a partnership into Victoria, so I'm in Queensland. So again, for some reason in my mind, I thought I could run this remotely, and you obviously can't, right? Because if you're going to run a business, especially a bricks and mortar business, you need to be there every day. You need to be the leader, the driving force of that business. You cannot rely on other people. It's your money. You're investing millions of dollars and time into these businesses. You have to ensure that you are the one driving that business every day. Until you can get it to a point where you have paid all your debt, you've spent years and years creating a manager, a general manager who has the same ethics and understandings and standards that you have, that you can then give them a profit share and have them implemented into the business long term. And that allows you time later on, but there's no rush. So again, I rushed. For whatever reason, I didn't learn from the first time. We bought 2 stores straight up. We paid $800K for these. We got big bank loans for these. Again, profitable, doing well. We had a third business partner who wasn't financially invested because he had some financial issues when he was a bit younger as well, same as me. So I have a soft spot for people. I want to see people get a second chance and have a chance at thriving in what they're doing and have an opportunity to be in a better situation. So he ran the stores and we put him in a better situation. Good salary, some profit share, car, all the perks, and that allowed him to have a better opportunity at being an investor at some stage. Now, another opportunity come up to get a third store, and that third store was the breaker, because the third store, another greenfield, which I should have known from the first time when I did a greenfield. A greenfield is a brand new store. You have no sales history, no goodwill. So the third one was a greenfield, and of course it did nowhere near the numbers that it needed to do to break even, and that was sucking the life out of the first 2, who were very profitable stores and doing really well. We were crushing the loans, business was going really well, we're growing year on year, and then the third store then was eating into the profits, and with that provided a level of stress. And when you have stress, you create situations that you never could imagine that you'd be in, because you never know how people deal with stress differently. I'd already lost a few $1 million previously from bad decisions and made some really good decisions. And for me, I'd by that point, I'd understood that you can make more money. It's not the end of the world. So my emotions when I lost the first $800K were far different to this time when I'd lost a few multi-million. And this time, from the third store was sucking so much, we had an opportunity to buy a fourth store. And the fourth store was already operating, doing really well. So I was like, let's get the fourth one to help fund the third one, to carry us through the other 2. And if I could hang on long enough, that would have been okay. But March 2020 came, COVID came, and we had a massive Victorian tax payroll tax bill that I didn't know existed. I'd never done business in Victoria before. And it was a few $100,000. The business had already been sucked dry. And then leading up to COVID, my general manager, who was running the whole operation, really good friend of mine, he found himself in a situation that we had no idea he was dealing with. He was dealing with a situation mentally that we had no idea. There was no signs of issues. There was no thought of this being in a situation. But I got a call on a Sunday from one of the stores saying, hey, he's not here today. And it's very unusual. Calling his phone, he's not answering. And you sort of know where this is leading, because we didn't see him again after that day, because he's no longer with us. And that day was a big shift in that business, because you don't prepare for these things. You have no idea these things are going to happen. So at no stage have you have a plan in place to experience that, because it's not something you experience all the time. And this is the hard part with business, is things happen every day that you just don't know. You don't know how to deal with it. Other people haven't dealt. You can't lean on people because no one's in that situation. You're it. So from that situation, I'm then stuck with 4 stores and had about 80 staff at that time, and in a completely different state from where I am. And I have my other businesses to run that had needed me daily. So stretched really thin. COVID happens the next month. A couple $100,000 in payroll tax bill, and everything was just the weight of the world. And with COVID, if you remember in the early days, there was no government incentive. There was no There was no indication that there was going to be COVID cash getting pumped in and not having to pay wages and stuff and getting all that government stimulus. That didn't exist. So one thing I've learnt through business is stress comes from a lack of control. And in situations like this, you have to take control. Now, you have to make a decision. And whether it's the right decision, the wrong decision, I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What matters is you have control. Because if you're going to bed every night, again, you've got your wife and kids and you have all these, you have another whole other thing to worry about, which is the well-being of you being good enough to support your family and do very well. And you not being there mentally will be a massive strain on that as well. So I think you have to make a decision and you have to make it final. And I was there for weeks on end, just stressing, thinking, what am I going to do? This is absolute disaster. I've got millions of dollars tied up in this, and loans and property, and absolute disaster. And I had to make a decision. Do I continue to operate not knowing what's coming? I had no idea what next week was going to happen or the week after. Would I have enough money for rent, wages? I've got all these staff that have to support their families because it's not their fault COVID happened. It's my responsibility to make sure they're looked after because they do the right thing by me for the previous years. And so I had to make a decision, and my decision was to shut the whole thing down. I had no choice. I liquidated the whole lot. And whether in hindsight, it's not the right decision because 2-3 weeks later, government stimulus money came out and I would have been fine long term. And as you know, retail has had a very booming last 3 to 4 years. The economy has been very, very strong. And if you look back and reflect on that, it's the wrong decision. But it wasn't the wrong decision at the time. Because at the time, I had to make a decision. And by making a decision, I had clarity. Because when you have clarity, you can then be free of the shackles that are draining you. Because when you're stressed and you haven't made a decision, you cannot think. Your water's here. You're drowning. And you're just struggling to keep your head above water. And when you're doing that stress, you have no clarity. And by making a decision, pull the pin, empty the plug, and now the water's gone and I've got clarity to make decisions. And from then I've owned some more businesses and ended up being okay anyway. But financially took a massive hit again. So a couple of good lessons, I think. One, I have no regrets. If I didn't do what I did, I wouldn't be where I am today. You never know what happens. Every day is an unknown. We're very lucky to be here anyway, and we're very lucky to see tomorrow anyway. So I'm very grateful to be able to be in a position to make those decisions. But you have to learn that you have to control your ego. There's no way to plan for the unknown. Things just happen and you have to ride with it. And at the end of the day, you have to make a decision because nothing will bring you down quicker than stress. And dealing with stress will send you to places that you have no idea even existed. When you've got, liquidators saying, you had big leases on these 4 properties and there's millions of dollars of leases and you're getting phone calls daily going, it's millions of dollars. And you just the stress of that and taxes and just everything. To pull the plug on that was one of the best decisions I made for me. Because it gave me clarity and allowed me to be present with my wife and my kids and my current situation. And although detrimental financially, it was provided great clarity and put me in a position to be able to thrive in where I am today. So there you go. So I don't know whether it was really some life lessons on my biggest failures, but at the end of the day, when it comes to business, experience is everything. And it's time in the game will give you your biggest lessons. Because no one can tell you how to deal with these situations. At the end of the day, they go home. They go home and they get to enjoy their life or switch off, and you don't. You're the one on the front line dealing with it. And I'll leave you with this quote. And it goes, I don't know what the quote says exactly, but the underlying theme is, when I ate, everyone ate. When I was doing well, everyone did well. My friends, my employees, my suppliers, everyone did well. But when I lost alone.